It's not a matter merely of confronting two individual stories now, the two Lucys. I think we're confronting a mirror held up to a faltering justice system. Lucy Connelly, jailed for a vile but impulsive social media post. Lucy Letby, convicted of one of the worst crimes imaginable, and now at the centre of a growing debate about whether she was wrongly imprisoned on the basis of poor science, NHS dysfunction, and the overreach of the prosecution. And yet these two cases, dissimilar in detail, uncanny in resonance, have become rallying points for Reform UK. Of course they have. Nigel Farage and Richard Tice will leap onto any bandwagon that's travelling. Usually content to parade economic populism, they've made martyrs out of the Lucys. They've seized on both as symbols of what they claim is a two-tier justice system, but the question we must ask is not whether these women are innocent or guilty, it's whether they are, each in her own way, scapegoats for a system too brittle, too politicised, or too proud to admit its failures. And the fact that that Reform UK are leaping on this bandwagon doesn't automatically mean that bandwagon isn't worthy of consideration. I think the two Lucys, both Lucys, are rightly the subject of serious interrogation. Lucy Connelly was sentenced to a 31-month imprisonment for inciting racial hatred. Her posts were repugnant, but there was no riot, no fire, no civil unrest resulting directly from her outburst. Compare this to the case of the Labour MP Mike Amesbury, who was credibly alleged and was caught on camera physically assaulting a constituent and yet faced no criminal sanction beyond 3 days in prison. Clemency was offered to him and not to her. Or the countless criminals convicted of violent or sexual offences who receive far shorter sentences than Connelly. Why? Or indeed have been released early because the prisons are overcrowded. Why? Richard Tice has called for Keir Starmer's has called her Keir Starmer's political prisoner. That may be hyperbole, but her alleged treatment in prison, being handcuffed, being placed among violent inmates, denied food, if true, is scandalous. And Reform UK is correct to ask, why is there no mechanism to challenge a sentence on the grounds of it being too harsh? Connelly's punishment, disproportionate, arguably politicised, has become a symbol for uneven sentencing, not least because of the way it contrasts with the leniency shown to people like Amesbury, people who are in power, people who have friends in Parliament. Then there is Lucy Letby, convicted of murdering 7 babies, and now questions swirl like smoke after a fire. Post-mortem results that certified natural causes, alleged insulin poisonings based on scientifically dubious tests, the lead prosecution expert, Dr. Dewey Evans, now recanting some of the very mechanisms he once proposed as evidence of murder, and a growing cohort of expert neonatologists and statisticians, including Dr. Shu Li and Dr. Svelina Dimitrova, who argue the case is at best medically unsound and statistically incoherent. It's perhaps telling that the NHS itself has been accused of distorting records, intimidating whistleblowers, and failing to disclose evidence. And some of the documentation that I have seen confirms a wider pattern. Documentation adjusted, risk management reports buried, whistleblowers sidelined. Letby may not be the only victim of injustice, but she is the most visible at this moment. And so the tragedy deepens. For if she is innocent, and I do say she is, but only that I don't say that she is, but only that it's possible, then she has been buried alive beneath a rebel of institutional negligence and forensic overconfidence. And if she is guilty, then the state must explain how it managed to make her guilt look so implausible. What binds the Lucys together, apart from their names, is not guilt or innocence, but the narrative they serve. For Reform UK, these are not people, they're platforms. And the party leaps onto these cases not from concern for justice, but to stoke righteous indignation. Tice's proposed Lucys Bill would allow public petitions to overturn harsh sentences, a noble idea in theory, but potentially unworkable in practice, where legal nuance gets swallowed by Twitter mobs. Farage's doubts about Letby's convictions are, one suspects, less about justice and more about undermining public confidence in institutions, the NHS, the judiciary, the state itself. It's clever politics, but it's dangerous, because when you mine real injustice for rhetorical gold, you run the risk of destroying the very idea that law is a neutral ground. We don't know whether either Lucy is innocent, but we do know this. The British justice system is struggling to uphold its founding principle, that justice must be blind, fair, and proportionate. Connelly was prosecuted with a ferocity absent in other cases. Letby was convicted on expert testimony, now publicly disputed by other more qualified voices. What we see is not just the overreach of prosecutors, but the slow decay of credibility in institutions that no longer seem to serve either justice or the public. Reform UK is not wrong to raise these concerns, but they are wrong to pretend that they are the first to care. If we are to fix this, we must resist the urge to turn human beings into symbols. The law is not a weapon for our culture wars, it's a shield for the guilty, for the innocent, and for the society that we hope to build.